Hello, hello. Hello, everybody. My name is Ted Efremov. I'm a professor in Art and Design Department. Welcome to the final. Can you hear me okay? Oh? Okay. Welcome to the last portion of our symposium, the keynote address. So in the summer of 2023, I took a trip on a ship called the Antigua, and you could see it in this image that Julie has up in the left corner. And this trip was around the Svalbard archipelago, which is one of the furthermost northern lands. And I was on this trip. It was an artist residency. Well, actually, it's called the Arctic Circle Residency for artists and scientists. And I was on this ship with about 30 people, mostly artists, some musicians, and a couple of scientists. And it was an amazing trip. And we saw amazing landscapes, amazing animals, and it was very interesting. And the artists and scientists every evening would give talks about their own work, short talks. We had this lovely dining room. And so one evening, Julie gave a talk. And after everybody dispersed, I was left there sitting with Julie. And I kind of on a whim said, Julie, would you mind doing something with our university here in Connecticut? And Julie was interested in curating an exhibition, which if you follow us after this talk, is in Maloney Hall currently. And Julie is a professor at University of Muncton in Canada, and she teaches photography primarily. She's a very interesting artist. So today with us, there are about 7 or 8 artists that were on that ship in the Arctic, and they're all in this exhibition. And because this exhibition has a lot to do with climate change, I thought of Dr. Charles Button and the Sustainability Symposium, and we made a collaborative move to engage our students and others with the symposium and the exhibition. And a lot of the artists on this trip were from China, France, Canada, all different places. So our staff here in the gallery worked very hard to get all of the artwork here. Julie curated an amazing show. And we got along pretty well with all the people from China and France and Canada, and we didn't try to extort money from each other while we were putting this show on. It was quite a lovely experience working with these people. It was a very collaborative thing, kind of like what academia should be about. So I give you Julie Forgues.
Hello, everybody. So here it goes. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that I recognize and respect Native peoples as traditional stewards of lands. I thank them for their strength and resilience in protecting this land and aspire to uphold my responsibilities according to their example, and I hope you all do also. This keynote will be presented as a personal journey through my experiences as an artist researcher, working primarily with the photographic image, and will demonstrate how one research flows into the other. My research creations explore and visualize how the in-between constitute a state in itself, between what was, a space, and what will be, a place. Therefore, a middle ground where natural and cultural elements find themselves in a state of undetermined transformation. Neither place nor space but an in-between between these two standpoints. I explore these concepts mainly in the context of various international artist residencies, where regardless the location, the environment, and other artists, all become intertwined in my artistic process. That itself changes as it comes head to head with new surroundings. But first, how did I get here? As the keynote speaker for this symposium and the curator of Emerging Dialogues in the Midnight Sun presented at the Chen Art Gallery. Here's how it all started. In 2023, I was part of the Arctic Circle Summer Solstice Program Residency, where I met Ted. During this expedition, each artist had the opportunity to give a short artist talk. I was the last one on the list. After I finished, as I was slowly gathering my belongings and all the other artists had left, I saw Ted sitting, looking at me. I said, "Are you okay?" And he responded, "We have to talk." And that talk led me here. The artist talk I presented was in a form of a letter, a personal letter to Svalbard, the archipelago where the residency takes place, that is situated north of Norway, east of Greenland, and west of Siberia. It was my second time experiencing this unique residency, as I had participated also in 2016. And that at the same period of year, the summer solstice, when the sun never sleeps. And on the same vessel, Antigua, a fishing vessel transformed into a 3-mast tall ship. I had chosen to write a letter in response to the recurring question, why did you come back? And it's a question that keeps surfacing to this day whenever I say I've participated twice in this residency. Therefore, since this letter was a catalysis, I'm giving it a second reading, or more I could say, an updated version, as if I'm still there on Antigua, floating in the waters of Svalbard. Here's Svalbard. Did I tell you why I came back? Maybe it's time I do. When back home after my first solstice expedition in 2016, I had this penetrating feeling that I had left a part of me on you. This is why I came back, to reclaim this part of me that I left behind, here in your skies, your waters, your shores, your lands. After coming back home, when asked about you, I couldn't utter a single word, as if you wanted to stay deep inside me, undisturbed, as if I was living a beauty trauma. Your ruggedness and softness were intertwined and floating in the lived experiences that were now forming memories, latent, in waiting, not to be touched. Dear Svalbard, I had always dreamt of visiting the end of the world, this faraway land to the north, the Arctic, where glacial fragments floating in deep blue waters are greater in number than humans. You and your island companions form a unique and distinct Arctic region. One of many aspects that define you is the fact that there are no indigenous peoples that are embedded in your history, like the great majority of the other Arctic territories. Dear Svalbard, would your lands be better protected if you had this history embedded in you? I wonder. You remember that first encounter when I turned your wide spaces into places and worked within their states of in-between. I had questioned where and how I could find these fluctuating states on you. First day of that residency, as we floated away, as Antigua was cutting its way through the calm waters, your Sarah, the top guard, answered these questions by introducing 3 other guards, all women, and explaining that when on landings, they would go out first as danger, being polar bears, might be lurking around. By establishing a triangle or a square on each landing, your guards formed the lieu where we, the artists, would all individually be engaging in a creative act, our place, in your space. She then went to explain that we couldn't exit this figurative triangle in any case. Here's Svalbard. Do you remember that the first time I stepped on your rocky coast, my work developed in a life of its own? Your guards became an integral part of our place, my place, within these ephemeral Arctic geometric forms. I immediately chose to capture every one of them, and that every time we were on you. Each place, I captured your guards looking towards the land, as they formed a triangle existing as fluctuating boundaries between place and space. Then I would take their positions at the edge, at the in-betweens, knowing very well that one step to the right or to the left would have changed the place and space. Therefore, they and I became living in-betweens. Between a circle and a vessel was the result. 11 ensembles of shifting physical states to static photographic forms, all under the imagined triangle or square shadows of the precise time and location captured by GPS points. Was it in one of those images that I left a part of myself? And then all these in-betweens would just as quickly disappear as they were formed, as we zodiac back to our Antigua, leaving the small part of you that we had only met for a moment, becoming smaller as distance became bigger, transforming themselves as present memories. Here's Svalbard. Remember that morning your Sarah announced that we were at 80 degrees north. We all rushed to the deck. In open air, we all fell for your beauty. We all got engulfed by your magical spell. Did you perceive what was going through my thoughts as we watched, listened, smelled, felt this lavish yet imposing view of packed ice, with no land in sight, and where sea and sky blurred their edges? The only sentence I could utter in my head was, I should not be here. I should not be here. I should be here. I should not be here. I should not be here. Here's Svalbard. Do you still remember us? Do you still remember me? Where did I leave that piece of myself? Can you tell me? I kept thinking of you, even in Shanghai, a year later, at the Swatch Art Piece Hotel residency. I kept thinking of you during 6 months while searching for other types of in-betweens. This time I was searching for in-betweens that would resemble or differ from the ones I had found in Beijing in May 2015 at the Red Gate residency. This residency itself was inside a guarded compound that was inside a guarded illegal village of migrants from all over China. The village itself was separated by their common place of origin, marked by distinct wall colors. Residency bathed in the pinkish orange. But these villagers were permanently in a latent state, as the government could destroy the village overnight, just as other surrounding villages had suffered. They lived in a psychological and physical in-between, since their surroundings was always short-term, unstable, precarious. In Beijing, I was therefore living inside an in-between, and that's what I was looking for in Shanghai. Sites that were neither culture nor nature, but sites in waiting, waiting to be altered, waiting to be acknowledged, and waiting to be landscapes. Here's Svalbard. I'm saddened to tell you that this village was destroyed not long after I left. Nonetheless, I looked for these similar in-betweens in Shanghai. I couldn't find them, these in-betweens. As time went around, I couldn't enter them since they were guarded, just like the ones in Beijing, but I was not living in them. I therefore had to find them elsewhere. I thought I would find them in the widespread devastation and destruction of old Shanghai, where memories, stories, narratives vanish in the walls that were crumpling before my gaze, where some people were still living, but to what extent? Dear Svalbard, is surviving and living the same thing? I also thought I would find them in the abandoned World Expo 2010 sites on both sides of Shanghai's Hangpu River. Better city, better life was its slogan. And at the same time, 18,000 Shanghainese were displaced to the edge of the metropole to accommodate pavilions that are now unused, except for such pavilions as the Chinese and Spanish buildings. Most are now discarded memories, now mirroring the past memories of the Shanghainese that used to call this 3.2 square miles home. However, these in-betweens didn't have much chatter. They didn't talk. They were too quiet, as if they had talked too much, and now were fading and weren't inclined to reveal anything more than what they had already said. I kept thinking of you. I found them, the in-betweens, at the end of each metro line, the biggest metro system in the world. I kept thinking of you as I walked out of the train station of Line 1 in the north and noticed a group of tall buildings erected in a wide open area. I kept thinking of you when I was so stunned that my eyes didn't understand and couldn't grasp what they were seeing. I kept thinking of you as I reflected on what was a place, a village, a community, while looking at the amalgam of some 50 identical buildings that were standing tall and confident not too far from me. I kept thinking of you when I noticed on the ground brick fragments, torn flags, a lonely plastic sandal, all under the endless tracks of bulldozers. I kept thinking of you as I walked in what was and kept repeating in my head, where have all these people gone? It's so quiet, so very quiet in this city of more than 6 million inhabitants. Was I still in Shanghai? I kept thinking of you. They, the in-between, spoke as you did, dear Svalbard, but differently, and impacted me as much as you had. After traveling 930 miles of Metroline, I found sites that were nowhere, but at the same time, sites that were now here, constructed, deconstructed, left behind, reappropriated. These sites go back and forth between space and place, or are simply in a stagnant state of in-between, neither space nor place. Shanghai itself is an in-between, between past, present, and present future, pushed back into the shadows, into limbo, state of waiting. Therefore, I was again living in an in-between. Dear Svalbard, can you explain to me what does displacement, disappearance, change, land loss, ecological pillage, history disengagement create, and how does the sense of community remain? Because since then, these questions have been etched in my mind. Did I tell you about my friend that spoke with great emotion about his parents being displaced to temporary housing units, signing an agreement with the local government that they were to be relocated in one of those tall buildings? Did I tell you that they are still waiting for a place, for a home? Dear Svalbard, I hope this never, ever happens to you. I dreamt of you in Shanghai. To this day, this dream is so very vivid. I dreamt that I was sitting on a hill, looking down at a fjord, or on a big piece of ice floe, floating on turquoise water, a traditional Chinese dancing troupe, all dressed in bright red, with flowing long sleeves, were dancing in unison. The contrast of the colors was just magnificent. I woke up weeping. I hope that your beauty will never come to an end. I hope that you will captivate many others, just like you did for me. Dear Svalbard, I thought of you a great deal also in Iceland. I repeatedly compared your beauty with hers. Maybe I shouldn't have. Is it because you still have a piece of me in you? I wonder. During my time at Art 350 Artist Residency in Grundafjord, where lives the famous church Mountain, the most photographed church in Iceland, what caught my gaze were the tourists and the sheep. Both were numerous, both were everywhere, both seemed to act like one another. Both are impacting the Icelandic environment. This correlation is what I chose to visually represent. Dear Svalbard, as I read numerous studies on both beings, I began playing a name-switching game between sheep and tourists. Maybe I shouldn't have played this game. Nonetheless, I did, and it shifted my perspective on the wilderness of Iceland. Dear Svalbard, I noticed that a great number of sites I visited had as many tourists and sheep leaving marks on the land. Some of these were difficult to detect, the marks in the land and the landmarks they leave. Good or bad, these marks are part of what Iceland is today. They are part of the everyday gaze, sometimes subtle, sometimes not. What has become of the naturalness of the Icelandic land? Will they be left floating in an ephemeral state of in-between? Will these stunning sights be overexposed to the point of no return? Dear Svalbard, I hope tourists or sheep will never impact you as they do in Iceland. I hope that they will never oversaturate you. I hope that they will never overexpose you. Please take good care of your ice and your land. Maybe there is hope, dear Svalbard, as in February 2024, Norway announced new regulations for you, including a limit of 200 passengers on ships visiting your protected areas to shield your fragile environment and wildlife. I hope this new guideline will also include non-protected areas in your near future. Dear Svalbard, so yes, I came back to you, looking for that piece of myself. And once more, you took me in your subtle embrace. Dear Svalbard, for the June 2023 expedition, my plan was to create a visual comparison in the style of survey photographers of what was and what is. Did you see my image archive of 2016 that I brought with me to compare once on landings the changes or not of your quote-unquote pristine land? These silver gelatin images were developed but not fixed, as the plan was to re-expose them under the 24-hour daylight and then fix them back home. However, we sailed to only one of these landings, as the packed ice in 2023 was too close to the North Shores, where we had spent most of our expedition 7 years prior. After one landing, I was delighted and lost. I was delighted because I could at least visually compare one specific area, like I had planned. And there, dear Svalbard, sadly, I noticed a great change in one of your glaciers. 7 years had done its black magic on you. I was lost because this project that I had so carefully planned had come to an end only after one landing. I was therefore lost in the preconceived thoughts that I had organized so strategically for this expedition. Dear Svalbard, how was I now supposed to address climate change that affect you? As we navigated from one glacier to another, I quickly realized that my image collection could undoubtedly be re-exposed no matter where I was on you, since what I was trying to foster with this artistic process was to bring forward into the artistic realm the great importance of communicating visually drastic changes on you. All my images were therefore re-exposed in your Arctic light in different parts of the southern and eastern coast of Spitsbergen, your biggest island, with the subtle elements that are being altered by our selfish behaviors. Fauna, warming waters, melting glaciers, weather changes, ice flows. With this work, I hope to generate the knowledge that our behavior elsewhere in the world can have great impact on the smallest important pieces of you. These images are now physical ghostly icons of the past and present to examine the future. The smallest impact on your fragile system will come back to haunt us if we don't take great care of it. Now is not the time to grieve. Now is the time to change so that we don't have to grieve. Dear Svalbard, I'm so sorry to say, but you must know that you are warming 6 times faster than the global average, causing your glaciers to melt at an alarming rate. This drastic transformation is driven by the self-reinforced cycle of your sea ice retreat and your atmospheric warming, like pieces of ice cubes dancing in hell. Did you see us that day, looking at one of your majestic glaciers? A fellow artist and I were also admiring the specks of ice that was surrounding you. Turned to me with a glacial look and said, "We are in the middle of a glacier cemetery." And then that glacial look was transformed to me. Dear Svalbard, these often imperceptible changes brought by climate change in you are changes that are difficult to grasp from afar. But the fleeting interplay between your ice and your seawater serves as a metaphor for this delicate balance between past, present, and future. As your Arctic landscape undergoes dramatic shifts, your faith will ultimately affect all of us, no matter the distance. Even if the vast majority will never see you, one paradox stands out: the fact that your region is the most affected by climate change by actions taken in the South. For this, again, I'm very sorry. Dear Svalbard, another aspect that caught my eye this second time around was the mist and the clouds that form on the very peaks of your mountains and on the top of your glaciers. I see these as subtle yet powerful indicators of climate change. As ice and snow gradually transform into vapor, this quiet process reflects the larger, more dramatic shifts occurring in you. The presence of this floating figure on top of you becomes a visual metaphor for the delicate balance between your ice, your water, and your air, an ephemeral sign of a warming world that often goes unnoticed, but speaks volumes about the changes unfolding in you. Dear Svalbard, so yes, I was back, but also for another specific reason: to look at your scars, your plastic wounds found in your waters, your snow, your shores, and in your living creatures. During the 2016 expedition, we collected plastic with Brigitte Lutz for the Alfred Wagner Institute. This experience impacted me profoundly. I felt ashamed. We all did, as we collected in utter silence. This trash that was stabbing you. When back home, one research group led to another, and my dear friend and colleague Juan, an environmental and earth science researcher at Université de Versailles, invited me to be part of the organizing committee of Micro 2018, an international conference on microplastic held in Lanzarote that he started alongside Bethany Jorgen of Cornell University. My role in this international committee, alongside two other artists, was to see how, for future conferences, arts could be better integrated. On the opening day of the conference, I had the pleasure to be sitting alongside Melanie Bergman, one of the well-known Arctic microplastic scientists, her as representative of the scientist, I as the representative of the artist. On the next day, I attended Melanie's conference, and dear Svalbard, she talked about you. And there I realized that it was for her studies that we had plucked plastic from your shores in 2016. I've since researched on how to visually render her and other scientific findings on microplastics. The first work I chose were her findings on microplastic in snow found in and around you, by juxtaposing my images of you taken in 2016 and her research to communicate a new visual dimension to scientific data. I've also begun to visually represent other scientific renderings, such as the different specific colors that are ingested by some mammals and birds. I have found these selfish traces here in almost every part of you, even the ones that have yet to be charted. Dear Svalbard, in June 2023, did you see me obsessing about taking all these greedy traces off you, and that on every landing? Did you also feel my uncontrollable tears falling onto you in your rocky veins on that day? Some of us plucked a multitude of plastic splinters that were on your bare skin, along with a colossal stack of intertwined blue plastic. Did you feel us taking these away from you, one by one, big and small? As time floated by too quickly and Antigua called for our return, we had to leave you before all of the greed was washed off your delicate skin. I felt as if I was leaving you with open wounds, with lasting pain. I didn't want to go, but I had to leave this little part of you while allowing some plastics to remain on your membrane. I'm so very sorry. Dear Svalbard, I went back to Lanzarote this year for Micro 24. This time, sadly, I was the only representative for the arts. I saw a multitude of talks from the 750 conferences on micro and nanoplastics. But again, I asked myself how to effectively share scientific findings to non-scientific audiences. Richard Thompson, the scientist that coined the word microplastic, summarized it with a critical eye during his keynote address, saying that we know there is plastic everywhere, from krill in Antarctica, turtles in the Pacific, fibers in your fjords, and in every part of the human body. But what do we do with these findings is the key. How do we reach people? How can we get the social sciences better implicated? Oh, dear Svalbard, all I want to say, jump up and scream, was the arts. But I didn't. I waited to tell Juan on our Saturday drive to the beach, where the idea of the conference of microplastic dawned on him. I had my notes prepared to elevate the arts' significance at this conference, making it more impactful than it had already been. On the Friday evening, as the conference was closing, suddenly and tragically, Juan passed away. Dear Svalbard, I can't tell you enough how this news utterly stunned me and the entire scientific community, leaving us fundamentally shaken. Now I'm wondering how to get the arts back in the conference, but I tend to go forward with this and persist with my obsessiveness on microplastic. And that I promise for you and for Juan. Dear Svalbard, therefore, yes, I went back in 2023 to find that part of me I left behind. I didn't find it, but I did leave another part of me. But this time around, I know it's gone forever. I don't need to find it, since I know it will be safe within you, forever, just like the first one. Take care, Julie. Questions? Yes, so if there's questions, you can ask questions now, but I would, if there is no questions, I invite everybody to come to the Chen Art Gallery, and we will have a little talk with the artists, and then I have two big questions to ask them. And then you can stay with for the reception. There's alcohol, there's food, and there will be a live performance from Justin, who has just joined us. Sure. Yeah, sure. Yes, yeah. Well, is there any specific questions right now for me?
So this group here was on the ship, on the tech, and we knew that you had been there before, but this is the first time seeing this. You were alone a lot. You didn't go out on all of the landings. You stayed on the ship. No. And on the second trip. Oh, no, I went on that. No, you did go on them, but you often were there, you stayed behind. And I'm thinking that, I'm feeling you're feeling that you're having to stay on board sometimes just to process things and to rethink the experience that you had before. And it did feel like you had an intimacy with the space that we didn't have because you had been there before. So it's just an observation in seeing your talk this night.
Yeah, I think the first time, and I think this is what you guys lived through also, was that there's a landing, I have to go out. I know it's going to be the last time. Let's go walk. Let's go see this. Let's go see that. And rush. And the first time I felt like it was so overwhelming and that we are so small in this world. Like we are so tiny, and to be there on the top of the world. Like if you look at a globe, the little metal part that holds the globe, the Svalbard is under that little metal part. Like you think we're really on top of the world. But I when I came back, I think that's why like I really felt I had left something in me because I didn't live it. And this time around, I did live it. And I didn't felt obliged to go out and like miss. I know like once you guys went up a mountain, well, I stayed down and worked on the rocks and took my images. And then another time you guys went out, I stayed on the shore, like, and I think that's, like you're saying, is that I lived it once and then I wanted to experience it the second time, if that's Makes sense? Yeah, that intimacy. And so Adam, who is here also, Adam was on, you can lift your hand maybe? Yeah. So Adam and I were on the trip in 2016, and then we were back on the trip in 2024, 23 together. So I don't know if you had the same feeling, Adam.
I think that would be good to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think I felt less rushed. Like, you know, you have to experience, you have to. And then I was like, no, if I don't go on top of that mountain, that's okay. It's okay. I can experience something else here. And once I stayed on the boat, and I think I was alone on the boat. And that was another experience in itself, because I hadn't done that on the first trip. So that was really interesting to see you guys work on land, and I was on the boat looking at you guys. So that was interesting too.
I'm thinking on the schedule, I think it says 5:15 for the panel over there, correct? So perhaps we should scoot on over.
So let's just scoot over to the gallery. You guys can follow
So
Ted
does anybody
if you don't
need
know.
directions to the gallery? Does everybody know? Yeah. Perfect. Sounds good. Ted, I'm